Don't
Hi,
try.
how are you?
I'm working extra.
Ellen, do you know how to lock the door?
Yeah, okay. Is it, it's open?
15 minutes, it's unlocked right now.
Oh, okay.
Just got the one step at a time, left foot, right
Hold on,
foot.
distraction.
At the end of the weekend, you might be someplace.
Right, I'll
We
be
saw
either
it.
here or there.
Yeah.
That's the story of life.
You reach that age where
You're in it.
you're fatalistic about everything.
Sit up here so we can go out and lock the door.
No, I gotta, I always have my book, I'm ready to throw it, so I reach that mentality.
Yeah. And
I should be closer to the door.
I remember hearing your voice saying, and if it doesn't, why do you say?
I'm glad you have towels on. Keeps me warm.
Yeah.
Okay, Ellen and Stephen, this one's for you.
Thank God for you.
Do we?
I'm gonna not, I mean, I'll leave it on in case somebody can say who we
So Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Yes. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna guess some people will join us in a little bit.
The Jewish way.
Yeah.
Be late.
Yeah, that's the thing. At Brandeis, all classes started 10 minutes after the hour. We kind of described it to that.
We call it Jewish time.
Jewish time, exactly. So let's turn to page 192 and enter into prayer with Matovu. universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei kol basar umachli la'asot.
Elohai neshama shenatata b'tehorai. Elohai neshama shenatata b'tehorai. Elohai neshama
Page 198. We'll chant together in Hebrew this list of prayers of miracles we look for, we hope to witness and or bring about in our world every single day.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sechli bina, lehavdin bein yom u'bein layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef ketufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokach haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten leYair koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir shekina me'inai, u'tuma me'avabai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani bat chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael v'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael v'tichara.
Page 204, let's read in Hebrew at the top. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And together in English, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. Page 206, together in the English. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
Come on, 206.
And now 218. So go ahead and turn to 218. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Page 229 in the middle, let's read together. You are praised who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe into delicate vessels of light. And from nothing at all we could perceive in a world that has turned old, a shimmering new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence? How much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks upon the sea. You are praised who forms from the clay that clothes our lives, vessels which contain our lives. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'orot.
That's right.
So, right, we just learned this on Thursday. Yep, okay. So come to lunch and learn, and you'll see the prayers take on new meaning.
Adonai Elohim
ישמחה ויחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל. Page 241. Before we sing Nichamocha, let's read this reading at the top of the page. The good in us will win over all wickedness, over all wrongs we have done. We will look back at the pages of written history and be amazed, and then we will laugh and sing, and the good that is in us, children in their cradles will have won. Our hearts beat with certainty that there is a day and an hour and a mountain called Zion, and that all of the sufferings will gather there and become song, ringing out into every corner of the earth from end to end, and the nations will hear it, and like the caravans in the desert will all to that morning throng. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar hakodesh, nora tefilot osei feleh, nora tefilot osei feleh, shira chadasha, shiru yehudim, leshimcha al svatayam, v'yachat b'nam, odu v'hivleku, ve'aru, Adonai lo le'olam va'ed, Tzor Yisrael, Umay Ezra Yisrael, Uv'dei Kinumecha, Yehuda Yisrael, Bo Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, K'Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. As we turn to the tefillah, the central prayer of our service, I just want to point out that when we get to the Kiddusha, which is the part that has the Kadosh, 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 on the opposite page, on page 249, is an excerpted part of our morning's Torah portion. It has a lot of the holiness code there. So while we're singing the Kiddusha, when we get to that part of the Amidah, if you want to take a look over there, I encourage you to. So page 242, if you haven't already, please rise.
Yes,
part of your prayers.
Yes. Can I?
Service surrounding the reading of our Torah. We're going to study up some of the texts that I gave out about holiness afterwards, after we've had a chance to hear the Torah portion, or at least selections from it. So you can join us at page 362. And today's one of those days we probably need everybody to participate in some way in our Torah service. Does anybody want to come up and open the ark? Thank you, Rabbi.
Will somebody help? I think yourself. You need probably 2 people, 1 for each door, right?
Ideally. You got some kids to choose from, you know, so any of them want to go? Yeah? No? Good? It's easy, just slide them. They've done it before. No? All right. You can handle both sides. We'll help you. And who would like to carry the Torah around for the Haftarah? Anyone? Stephen, yeah, you want to do it? And who would like to help undress the Torah? Jody, great. That's good for now. Okay, so everyone, 362, page 362, please rise.
Adonai
693. If you did not have a chance to grab one but would like to get one, now's your chance. We'll take a moment. Go ahead and talk amongst yourselves. Thank you, Ellen and
Oh,
Jody.
we have a team. Thank you so
Thank you.
Does anybody need the handout?
much. Yes, thanks.
Okay, so page 693 in the Chumash for Parashat Kiddushim. And this is the heart of the Torah. This is the very center. If you think about how, you have the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, this is the center of Leviticus, this is the center of the Torah, and it's the holiness code. Leviticus chapter 19, and it's the words we have here above our ark that we have declared are central to us and who we are as CBSRZ, is this idea that we shall be holy because God is holy. And so following our Torah reading by our 2 wonderful Torah readers this morning, Ellen Nodelman and Bobby Teva, we will have a chance to wrestle some more. We were doing it last night and a little bit in Scrollers with this idea of holiness. And what does it mean? What is kadosh? What is kiddusha? I hope you'll get the gears turning a little bit while we're hearing our wonderful Torah readers. And we have opportunities for aliyot. Who would like to come up? Maxine, raising her hand right up from the start to do an aliyah this morning. Please come on up. Remind me your Hebrew name. And Ellen. Neshama Ita. Nachama. Great. Ta'amod Nechama Ita Bat Feivel Leah La'aliyah LaTorah. Baruch Hu Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher baruch banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayodaber Adonai el Moshe Remo. Amen. El kol Adam b'nei Yisrael ve'amata alechem kiddushim tinu ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohim. Shimo lehavim tirahu v'heshem totahai tishmoru ani Adonai Elohim. Al tiflu el ha'elimim ve'lachem masecha lo tahasu lachem ani Adonai Elohim.
Asher Koah. Beautiful.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet gechaye olam natav b'tachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And Yasher Koach. And Maxine is going on an incredible trip next week.
I'm looking for synagogues in Iceland and Greenland.
So we wish you safe travels.
Thank you
We
very
can't wait to
much.
hear how it goes on your way back. And you can go and stand with your family, Linda. And Yasher Koach, Ellen.
Ellen,
So
yes.
Bobby, Bavakasha. And who would like the next aliyah? We have 2 more aliyot. So who would like the next one?
Henry.
No, Henry.
Henry,
Aliyah.
want to do an aliyah?
Ah, I have to.
Gotta get up.
Yeah.
We're so comfortable.
Yes.
I'm getting ready to take my nap.
So bless a little Torah first, then you can sleep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Baruch Hu Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai
נחרטה הנפש ההוא מעמיה.
Koach.
Very good, Jessica. Just a minute. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah shemet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And Henry, what's your Hebrew name? I didn't get to call your Hebrew
Zvi
name.
ben Nissen Halevi.
Well, thank you, Svi Ben Nisan Halevi, for
You're
chanting
welcome.
our blessings for us. And Yashikoah.
Yashikoah, you too. You can always go and look over my shoulder when you get stuck for work.
Anyone like no shirt, Aliyah?
Listen, we want to take it.
Yeah, you can picture of it. And your Hebrew name about Michelle?
David ben Michael.
What kind of big book?
Ya'amod harav David ben harav Michael ve'avital aliyah Torah.
And can I share one piece of Torah? Can I show one thing?
Befakasha.
So, I went to rabbinical school, and I learned, like many of you, the blessings that, the blessing I'm going to say after I read the Torah, which is Asher b'charbanu mikol hamim, which means that you have chosen us from all the peoples. And my rabbinical school taught me something really interesting, which is, what does that mean that we're chosen from all the people? Well, let's somehow imply that we're better, chosen. So one of my teachers said that this whole mikol that shows us that that's going to not go so well. So they told us that we could say this differently. And they said Asher b'charbanu im kol hamim, that we were chosen with all the peoples. So we're chosen to be Jews, and that's our destiny. That's our what we need to do. And the Episcopalians were chosen to be Episcopalians, and the atheists were chosen to be atheists, and the Shias were chosen to be Shias and stuff. So if you hear it after the Torah blessing, if you hear me saying Asher b'charbanu im, that shows us amongst all the other nations, that's why. All right. Baruch et Adonai HaMvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'charbanu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. V'kurtachem et ketziratachem lo תחלל פאי צדך לקצור ולקט קצירך לא תלקט וחרמך לא תלהו ופרד כרמך לא תלקט לעני ולגר תעזוב אותם אני אדוני אלוהיכם לא תגנובו ולא תכחשו ולא תשקירו איש בעמיתו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם אתה בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. ישר כוח. Yasher koach to our aliyot and to our Torah readers, our ba'alot kriya this morning. And while the Torah is in our midst, we take a moment to offer prayers of healing to members of our family, to members of our community who are ill, who are in pain, who are struggling to return to some sense of wholeness or wellness. And so if you have somebody for whom you are praying this morning and you'd like to share their name out loud, I invite you to do so.
Mine ben
בת שבע ואריאלה. Eli Cohen, Sandy, and David.
ישבח אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואימותינו שרה ורבקה לאה ורחל יברך וירפא את כל החולים האלה. And one who blessed all of our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. Bless and heal all those who are ill, all those who are in pain. We pray that each one of them is returned to a sense of wholeness and wellness, that they experience a healing of mind and of body and of spirit. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim, we praise you, God, who cares about the sick. And let us say together.
Amen.
Amen. Let us continue with Hagbaha and the Lila, the lifting and the dressing of the Torah. Do we have anyone here who would like to lift the Torah? It's right in the center, equal between both arms. Not too bad. There's a time to do Hagbaha. This is it. You want to try? Yeah? Have you done it before?
No.
Oh, this is it.
A little bit
I'm torturing him.
You're going to be great. We'll spot you. And then who would like to help dress the Torah?
Be strong now.
Who hasn't done anything yet today?
I'm strong now.
Aviv and Aria, do I need to call in?
Yeah,
You guys can do it. This is the easy part. Everyone please rise. So in a good rabbinic way, not a good teacher way, but a good rabbinic way, I've given you way too much. So I do encourage you to take the packets home for some of the additional Divrei Torah from some colleagues that I've given you towards the end. They just add to the conversation and to the ideas that are presented. What I think we will focus on are these two pieces on biblical concepts of holiness that starts on page 1, and then holiness in rabbinic Judaism, which starts on page 3. And in case you want to look more, because I did edit these into any of these, I've given you all the websites and citations throughout. So we've got this concept of holiness. We've got this concept of kadosh, of kiddusha. We hear it all the time, kiddush, kaddish. You know, this word comes up, kiddushim. And Oh, Mikdash, Beit HaMikdash, right? The tabernacle, the holy temple, we call that the holy place. But we're not exactly sure what that means, and how is that quality gained, right? Is it a status you take on? Is it something you aspire to? Is it transferable? Is it only about people? Can an object be holy, right? We kind of have that idea that it can be. Can a place be holy? How does that happen? So we have these ideas of holiness, but we aren't exactly sure, really, what does that mean? So let's wrestle with some of it together. Let's read a little bit on the top, on page 1. So who can read for us a little bit of this? We have so many nice readers in the room. Ellen, do you want to start?
Biblical concept of holiness. Holiness is difficult to define or to describe. It is a mysterious quality of what this holiness consists. In the simplest terms, the holy is different from the profane or the ordinary. It is other, as phenomenologists define it. The holy is also powerful or numinous. The presence of holiness may inspire awe or strike fear, evoke amazement. The holy may be perceived as dangerous, yet it is urgently desired because it affords blessing, power, and protection.
Okay, so what do you think about that as a start for a definition? Anything jump out at you? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree? What would you add or take away? We often think of holiness as distinct or separate from. That's what we were focusing a lot on, especially in scrollers this morning. And it's so interesting, Rabbi, when you were talking about in Kol Ha'amim, that reduces maybe the superiority that we worry about when we talk about holiness. Are we somehow implying we're the only ones who have access to that holiness? Or is it something that everyone can attain? Is this Kedoshim Tihiyu, is that you can all be holy? Who is that talking to? Is that really talking to everybody? What do you think? Who can acquire holiness? Before we even talk about what holiness is.
In the reading for today, when it says you should be holy, basically because I am holy.
Yes.
So it implies that there is some holiness emanating, and if in fact all people were made in the image of God, wouldn't that for that extend to all people, even though, if you think of the concept of holiness as being distinct or different or separate, which is often at the same time when the text tells us that you should be holy, immediately it doesn't tell you that you as the individual are separately holy. It's God is the name of
Right. The whole community.
The whole
Right.
community. The very first example of holiness is the family, which again is, a communal
That's
concept.
beautiful.
That it brings in every man shall mother his fathers. So that it doesn't make each individual sort of just like separate. It's a communal.
We're not going to raise someone up,
Yeah.
right? It's happening within the context of a larger circle.
Right, and it's in plural. It doesn't say like, Moses, Kadosh.
Yeah.
It says holies in the plural.
Or your bar mitzvah. We talked about you a little bit last night at services, by the way. Warren David mentioned you. And remind us what your Torah portion was.
Korah?
Exactly. And what was his main complaint with Moses and Aaron? Do you remember?
No.
Did he think that he was equal? Do you think that Moses and Aaron were just like everybody else?
It's a little bit of a government question. So it's okay. Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot. It's okay if you don't remember. So what Korach's main complaint with Moses and Aaron was, I thought you said we're all holy. Why do you hold yourselves up above us all? And so we have an interesting kind of conundrum in, especially in the early Israelite culture, where we do have the Kohanim and we do have the Levites, and they are raised up in some sense in terms of their status and their responsibility. But then we have this idea, which is that we all can be holy. And that seems to be part of Korach's complaint, other than the ego stuff that also comes in. Stephen?
I think the holy concept for me is that essentially it flows from self-sacrifice and a sense of the common good, and I think that's what a lot of the patriarchs had, that defined their life, and it's what other people in more recent times who have been regarded as holy have done.
Mention something. Who do you think of when you say
Well, you know, clearly Moses and the patriarchs all had to sacrifice for the group. And now Mother Teresa and you know, more recently, people of all faiths, Martin Luther King, we have these more people who've given the ultimate sacrifice for what they thought was justice. And you know, a lot of it is just sheer doing things for other people without expecting anything in return. I don't think that is just exalting yourself or putting yourself above anybody. The idea of separateness for me, or the idea of being different in this regard, is just that few of us can achieve that kind of holiness, although it's expected of us. And we potentially can, but very few people rise to that, and we all should, because we all really can. We just don't practice
Yeah.
in that sense.
Right. Implied here, I believe, is the idea that we can do this. We can do all of these things in this long list in chapter 19. 20 is its own issue. But 19 has so many incredibly fundamental ethical teachings. We can actually achieve that. Do we? But we can. We can try. It's just something to aspire to.
If I may, Rabbi,
Yeah.
the code that's here is similar to the code that we have in our civic or our civil government.
Ah.
And it's that these codes are essentially, the codes are designed to promote harmony and prosperity, and they don't come naturally.
Yes.
You have to learn the codes and live by them, and that can be the hard part sometimes. But I think that it's just a roadmap for all of us to follow for a more holy life.
Because it's not easy to do all of this. It's not necessarily the natural thing, the instinctual thing, instinctive, to do these things. Because sometimes we do want to cheat. Sometimes we do want to hang on to money that we don't want to pay our workers fairly. We don't want to have to, oh, do I have to donate again? I donated at work already. You know, I mean, you know, there are things we do that there's an inclination, right? Yetzer HaTov and Yetzer Hara. This good inclination within us and the bad inclination within us. And even in Judaism, we believe we're starting off pure. Every single morning, we start off pure. But there's that tug, too, towards that Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination. And this text seems to recognize that. So much of the Torah seems to recognize that. That we can fight that and we can achieve it and make the world better. Make our communities better.
And be more godlike.
And then be more godlike. And maybe what God most intended for us to be. The highest example of what a human being could be. Because we certainly have plenty of examples of what the lowest could be. Yes. Andrew, Linda.
One thing I have not seen before, maybe, or it's just striking me now, is preparing him before, it's blessing, power, and protection. I've never equated holiness and protection together. I mean, in fact, it's kind of the opposite. The more you evolve in some ways, the less safe it becomes. I mean, you're going out of your comfort zone, you're
Well, it says the holy may be perceived as dangerous, but it's urgently desired as it affords blessing or protection. So maybe in its ideal, we assume it does. But you're right, that in reality, maybe,
I mean, so many people that we named
No.
died
Yeah.
in
I
the
think-
attempt to be, to strive
To
to
rise
be.
above.
But they didn't put themselves above the average person.
Right, no.
okay.
They were living the ultimate, what we can all aspire to be, and they didn't reach that goal.
So maybe they were protected from that within them that
Yes,
resisted
for themselves.
developing the people that they became.
Yeah,
It's not a protection in terms of
Safety.
safety,
Kill
physical
our
harm.
best. Yeah.
It's a spiritual protection.
Maybe spiritual.
And go back to the very beginning of this, as I was saying before, it starts with the idea of our relationship to God, because I'm holy, but you should be holy, which is, God, and us, but it's both, it's an economy, because God is so overwhelming, so, above us in every possible way, and yet at the same time it's applied. And then what is the next thing? It's the intimacy of the family. And which is, the very basic relationships that we have. And then moves on to other things. So it's awe-inspiring and frightening in terms of him, and yet also comforting.
You have the Avinu Malkeinu
Yeah.
tension, right? Huh.
Everybody,
Yeah.
in regard to protection, when Martin Luther King's final speech was that he might not get to the mountaintop like Moses. He was paraphrasing from Moses, and he said, "I may not get there with you, but you'll get there." And he said, longevity has its place, speaking more to physical protection, but he had a more solid sense of who he was and what his moral code was. And I think that's the protection that he had that far exceeds anything that you will get through long years and material comforts.
And the interesting thing about Martin Luther King is we know he wasn't perfect.
Right,
And he had some moral challenges.
definitely.
And so when you talk about the protection to be pulled down under water by those things, maybe he was protected from being subsumed into those moral trappings that so many people do get lost in, and was able, for the most part, in certainly very important ways, to rise above. And is that something we all wrestle with? Is how much do we listen to that voice inside of us that guides us towards the good and towards the better, towards the right? Or how much do we kind of give in to what we know is not? So great, he's a wonderful example. You bring to mind also when you talk about sacrifice for the common good. I've had a few opportunities over the last couple of years to hear Rabbi Sally Priesand speak about this in particular. As you probably know, she was the first woman rabbi ordained by the Reform Movement in 1972. And she never married. She never had kids. She felt enormous pressure throughout her entire career that every single thing she did was reflecting not just on her, but on every single woman who would ever want to be a rabbi ever. She felt that pressure. And she's been speaking about this ever since she retired, especially, that she knew she couldn't do both. That in order to fulfill this role that she had presumably been chosen for, or had chosen herself or allowed herself to be, that there were going to be these sacrifices so that she could open this door for all of us. And so there are people, you're right, all the time who maybe they do something different. So is it something we can all ascribe to, maybe in our own ways? But then there are people that we do recognize maybe it's not that they're holier, maybe they just access more of it for themselves. I don't know. So we have this first definition, and we have this idea of holiness and otherness. And this is the part that makes us often really uncomfortable. You shall be holy, you shall be distinct. meaning that the people of Israel, in becoming a holy nation, must preserve its distinctiveness from other peoples. This gets us in so much trouble. It must pursue a way of life different from that practiced by other peoples. This objective is epitomized in the statement of Exodus 19:6, "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, Goy Kadosh." Because Goy is not always derogatory, it just in Hebrew means nation. A better rendering might be, "You shall be my kingdom of priests and my holy nation." The statement also conveys the idea, basic to biblical religion, that holiness cannot be achieved by individuals alone. No matter how elevated, pure, or righteous, it can only be realized through the life of the community acting together. So it's interesting that we've been talking about individuals. Can you think of ways in which a community rises to a level of holiness? Any examples? Something maybe you've experienced or you remember learning about? I would say, even though I wasn't here, that the Solidarity Service in November was our community rising to a level of holiness. That could only be achieved, I mean, if I may be so bold as to say. That something distinct was happening that was more in touch with the best of what we can be, right? Make it closer to God. Yeah, yeah.
From a historical level, when the Jewish community got together to demonstrate against the injustice of the South and segregation and the violence that was going on down there, and in large numbers went down there to try to affect the situation. That was a major community effort.
That's true. It's true. And you had all those rabbis who were arrested.
Yes.
Proudly, you know. Yeah, we have times when communities rise up and we gain strength from doing these things together, so we don't have to be alone in making the world better. Because that does seem to be a part of this, right? Ethical does seem to be a big, big part of this. Yeah.
I think anytime a community comes together to do people alone, it's worth anything. But interestingly, what came to mind is funeral. When I think of, it doesn't matter if there's 3 people sitting here or 300 people sitting here, there's something very holy about that. That these people coming together at this particular time to celebrate and support and share and all those things, there's something that never gets me every single time.
Yeah, me too. They say that a funeral strips you down. It takes away all of the pretense and ego. So when people come together under those circumstances, they sort of cut to the chase. And I think for that reason, it's very meaningful because we're all sort of feeling the same thing at that time.
Interesting. So you've just identified an authenticity that seems to be part of, right? There's no pretension in the practice of trying to be holy. And it's taking care of each other. Yeah.
And I think all of those examples are examples when one community comes together and shares those characteristics. It's contagious. It brings other communities with it. Because in the solidarity, it wasn't just us. It was people from outside. I was thinking of the Sunday after that happened, when we had this meeting here. And there was just, this visual sense of connection with everybody. We created a new community, sort of, Rabbi Dale was saying, within, not apart from, but within all people. And that's something that's contagious.
In a nice way.
Yes.
In, I believe it's Pirkei Avot, it says mitzvah gereret, mitzvah avira gereret avira. One mitzvah can lead to another mitzvah. One transgression can lead to another transgression. So we hope that like the pay it forward is good stuff. So in wrestling with this idea of holiness, I give you some questions to ponder here, and I found a little Jewish star as a bullet, point, which is fun. So if it says, I, the eternal God, am holy, does that mean that holiness is part of the nature of God? And does it mean that holiness originates from God? Okay. Is this something God can bestow? These are just things to think about. You don't have to answer. And then on the next page, page 2, who makes something holy? Does God make you holy, or does humanity make something holy? Is it a partnership between the two? right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. But what I bolded here, the way to holiness, in other words, was for Israelites individually and collectively to emulate God's attributes. And so we talk about everybody being made in the image of God, right? And is this a list? Is this our guidebook? Things like the Holiness Code. Now, there are plenty of other places in the Torah that teach us things that I think are pretty horrific. So what do we do with those is another question. Are those a guide to holiness, or is that something we're supposed to at some point say, no, that was not the right path? There's so much in this chapter, in 19, Leviticus 19, that is so beautiful. There are things in 20, specifically the prohibitions against homosexuality, that we find abhorrent. So we're always wrestling, what does it mean to follow God? Does it mean only in the Torah? What else is included in that, in the guidebook? There's then, how can we be holy? Towards the bottom of page 2, it broke down a little bit of Leviticus 19, what's included there. You have the ritual suggestions, and then you have the ethical suggestions. And so the final idea, I think, in the time we have to just think about on page 3 is the gulf between the sacred and the profane. So would someone like to read those 2 paragraphs? Yeah, Bobby, please.
Starting with in this letter, is that?
On page 3.
Oh, the goal, I see.
Uh-huh.
Through ritual prayer and formal declaration, sanctification took effect. In biblical Hebrew, these processes are usually expressed by forms of the verb hu, dalet, shin, especially piel, stem, kidesh, to devote, sanctify, declare holy. The gulf between the sacred and the profane was not meant to be permanent. The command to achieve holiness, to become holy, envisions a time when life would be consecrated in its fullness, and when all nations would worship God in holiness. What began as a process of separating the sacred from the profane was to end as a unification of human experience, a harmonizing of humanity with the universe and of humanity with God.
That's huge. So could it be that the goal is not to separate sacred and profane, but to actually get to a point where everything is sacred? Everything can be holy. We talked about this a little bit on Thursday at our lunch and learn from a Kabbalistic point of view. Can we live our lives as if everything we do, everything we touch, every encounter we have is somehow holy? Even if we're not quite sure what that means. What might that mean? Can you give me an example? Like, how could you, what's something you could do later today that you could add a bissel of holiness to? Any ideas?
Cooking, walking, talking.
Yeah. And how would you do it? Like, let's say cooking. What's a way you could add a little holiness to it?
Thinking about where the food comes from, the way it's presented, who participates in making it.
So mindfulness, I think, is a big part of that. And gratitude. The ways we talk to people. Can every encounter be one of respect, of dignity, of kavod, right, honor? Can we look at each other as if we are indeed all created in the image of God? So even if we're not quite 100% sure what this holiness thing is, we all have an idea. We know it when we see it. And we know it when we feel it. Look for the holy today. Look for the holy in places they wouldn't necessarily expect it to be. And maybe that'll also bring us all closer to holiness. So enjoy the rest of the packet if you have a chance to take it home if you're interested. There are some wonderful Divrei Torah. There's more about how the rabbis in later texts dealt with holiness in hierarchical and non-hierarchical ways, which was really interesting. And then, what does it mean to be holy? It's simple in definition, complex in action. the complex command to be holy, and the limits on our pursuit of holiness. So some neat things to think about here to maybe discuss with your family or just to ponder on your own to enjoy Shabbat. So thank you for engaging with me in this conversation. Yasher thought to you all. I will just remind you tonight, by the way, before we get to our complete prayers, tonight is our Music and More Comedy Tonight event at 7:30, adult only. Tickets are still available. You can come and get them at the door, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Then tomorrow morning is the final session of my book club all year, where we've been reading The New Jewish Feminism. Next year, just as a little teaser, Thursday Lunch and Learns are going to be studying the Sacred Table, creating a new Jewish food ethic. And it's a book of essays on just all kinds of Jewish food questions. And then on Sunday mornings, we're going to be reading Moral Authority and Spiritual Resistance, the Jewish Obligation to Social Justice. So we're going to be reading that together on Sunday mornings. So there's a lot of good stuff to come, but tomorrow is the last Rabbi's Book Club. And then, do you want to say anything about the mock wedding?
We have our mock wedding this coming Sunday.
Not tomorrow.
Oh, we can start.
Not the event, I'm ready ahead, so, yes. On the 19th,
Shabbat, we're here.
Yeah,
Right at the wedding.
I don't want to stress anybody out, but yeah, we have our culminating life cycle event where we have our sixth grader, two sixth graders will be the bride and groom kind of thing. And the whole community, everybody has a role in it. We will have yummy foods, and we have a celebration that follows it with music, and our emissaries will be with us for Israeli dancing. So there will be a reminder email going out to families to please come as well. Estimating it will be 11 o'clock start time.
If I may, the rabbi and the cantor do a great job on the real weddings as well.
That's very kind of you.
Thanks. I wish you could like put that on Google or something. 5-star review.
I know, right?
But thank you. Very kind. It was an honor to be a part of your wedding.
Amazing, amazing day.
So let's turn together to the return of the Torah to the Ark, which is on page 374. Please rise. of this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. This Shabbat, the community of CBSRZ marks the recent passing of Bert Bruskin, father of Michael Bruskin. And if anyone else has a Shiva Shloshim or Yortzeit they'd like to share out loud, I invite you to do so now. Zichronam livracha, may all of the memories of our loved ones always be a precious blessing to all who would love them. Together we join in the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba v'yamad yivarach v'yirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei kol beit Yisrael v'agala v'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabba v'barach le'olam olamei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitlamach v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei v'yishar v'yitlu Le'ela minkol b'chata b'shirata tushbechata v'nefemata da'amiran v'yama v'imru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya achayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom v'ramav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all of Israel, to all the world, and let us say.
Amen. We will close with Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu on page 657. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'avirav. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'avirav. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam, salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'avirav. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'avirav. Shabbat Shalom. Please come join us for a nash. It's a bagel. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah. Yes.
You want to? Oh, thank you.
Shabbos. See some Shabbos. You see some Shabbos too? You see some Shabbos too? No?
I have a lot of problems, so.
All right.
We're not going to make it harder for you. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Come to the baby.
You're losing your, okay. Your sister's growing. Well, that's that big house.
You can put a lot of people under this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see them.
You don't get black ones here to die, do you?
No.
All right, I come.
You don't get what?
Black culture?
When you get to be when you get to be about 50, 60, you get a big black house.
I'm already 50.
Always waiting for
Oh, it's okay.
The times
I
have
didn't
changed.
think
Good
you
one.
meant it.
A black, no, but it is a big area.
It's a white talus with a
That's funny. That's not dumb.
different looking glass for different.
Right, right.
Like this.
And the schmear.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, you guys know what they
Thank you
need.
so much, Gabby.
why many? Oh. Ay. Didn't you buy many?
it's a very exciting word. And there's liturgists and residents, two artists and residents, we have a Holly social justice stuff. Let's see if I remember, I just got a lot of these things. We don't, it's 300, yeah, it's small, the food is great, it's in heart. Yeah. Maybe opening it up for people who are coming for a day who are local, because it used to be up in New Hampshire where nothing was local. But since we have a whole Hartford, Connecticut community, we may open it up for like, kind of come in for a day. We don't get to make all those decisions, there's the whole board of directors. There are other people who chose all the fun.
Yeah. It's the 27th,
And musical and artistic, like there's all, like you'll have, the classes that I like are the ones that combine some kind of text study with theatrics or, or writing. I think I'm going to take my heard this coming this year as an artist in residence. And it sounds so cool. You're going to write a creative writing piece. And then set it up like a talmudic text. And other people in the class will work on writing the Rashi and the Tosafot on your piece of writing. Cool. And then there's going to be some kind of presentation, like you're going to then present it somehow at the end. I mean, it just sounds so, what's her name? I can't even sign up for that one. You want to do it too? We can be in the same classes. Usually try to think of it. I know, do you know, like happens the other one, Curtis? It's not Ellen. Ellen's the, well, maybe it is Ellen Dress. Ellen Dress? She's a musician. She's coming. She's coming as a liturgist in residence. You know her? Okay. She's recommended this Linda Hirschman. So she's coming as the liturgist in residence. Awesome. So she's coming. She's coming. She's good friends with two people, Martha Green and the other person who created Brad.
Oh, Marcia.
Oh, really?
Who wrote
also that they had this, they originally had they had a 56-hour non-stop watch all the adventures.
I bookmarked lists online of like what we're going to watch them all.
Yeah, they had them all over.
And I've seen a lot of them, on most of them, but the Avengers one I haven't had a chance to go.
Who's
That's
the
all
best
been
Jeff?
gathered here.
Who's the best Jeff with all of them? Not in the, or it was a lot of kids. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. The British guy, I can't remember his name, the band, I think it was in it too. This is the best
Oh, but you didn't see it. It's in the last.
Oh, you don't have to.
See,
It's spoiling. It's happening, she holds on to that. I want to see. All of them. I feel like I've led you.
Yeah, you are not ready to be one.
No.
Set trouble. Going back.
The last time I said that I finally got to see movies, this is a couple months ago, for 5 years, and this is very fun now. So we double feature. What did you see? We saw, Taylor Forgive Me. One cute. With Melissa McCarthy, it's based on a true story of a woman who was a biographer, who became an art forger. She forged letters from movies. So to balance that, we then saw Creed too. So, you know, we did boxing, so we did.
Girls make you guys think, or?
Yeah.
Perfect
We
double
saw
date.
screaming from the other side.
Okay.
And we both enjoyed both.
In the movie theaters now you can pick your seat.
Well,
It's so awesome, they have those screen that is every single week. We have
Here.
it's like being where my issue belongs with there. And they all lay back, right?
That's what you went to, yeah, I didn't know this. Right?
It's the ones that like the movies, the seats that are on the,
Right, those are recliners. Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast about movies, it's called Unschooled, and these two film critics are going to the AFI Top 100 films, and they're kind of debating them, and one of this is kind of labeled over. And apparently, they were talking about, there's a movie here in LA, where you get your own private kind of movie car, and you can.
That should be just like those guys, when you just stay in there.
That's true, but I guess you get other, perks of theater, like dinner and snack town, like food and common share.
Okay, how many people are
Because
in
they
this
were,
pod?
It's because they were talking about, like, why did you go to the movies?
Do they
Right.
lunch?
Well, I guess it would be, but I think, the reason is because some movies are best in a large screen and some are best in a community. Right, it's like,
Exactly. And then it's like on the big screen.
Yeah.
Well, because it's so much fun. Seeing it.
Right.
You know, when they watch the games on our world,
Yeah, that was the same thing, I did see a film with her,
Yeah.
seeing the group is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's great.
And
really, I know, and it lines is yours too.
this guy,
It's just that.
Yes.
Oh, I saw that.
waiting to hear, we don't make that decision, but you're talking about typically